that decision? Start with you, Representative Faison.
That's an excellent question. Figured it would come up today. America has evolved and progressed greatly in a downward spiral when it comes to health care. Ever since we got the government involved with health care and insurance. It's been a disaster. And unfortunately, every time the federal government passes another law that deals with health care, it just gets worse. We can prove by looking at other countries that socialized medicine really lowers the standard of care. That being said, I'm going to surprise you because Republicans have done a horrible job. Conservatives have done a horrible job helping the cause of health care in America and in Tennessee. My party can sit on the side and tell how bad socialized medicine is and how bad single-payer system is, and we just sit there and we don't offer any real viable alternatives. And that's probably why we're at where we're at today. We're going to have to do something. I represent a vast majority of people who don't have better access to health care right now other than basically a Band-Aid or emergency care. I represent people who fall between the time that they've retired around 55 to 64. They can't get access to health care. And I've sat and talked with individuals that if they don't get certain procedures done, they will die. For me, we live in America, the greatest country ever in the history of planet Earth. Surely we can come up with something that we can do to help these people who are falling through. It's not a huge majority of people, but there is a strong majority, especially in East Tennessee, that have no access to care. They can't pay for anything. So, I've been 100% against Obamacare, and I'm against socialized medicine. I would like to see us to where we help doctors get through medical school and say part of what you do when you come through medical school, you're going to do pro bono work, for a legal term. Well, you're going to do pro bono. We've got to do something, but I'll be the first to admit that I don't have the answers, neither do all the rest of the Republicans, but I also know that Obamacare is not the answer, and putting Tennessee in the risk of millions and millions of dollars a year to take care of people, that's probably not the wisest thing for us to do. And I wish I could do a better job at answering that, but I do know that every time government gets involved, our problem gets worse.
Jeremy, you're absolutely right. I can't name one federal program that it does well. I mean, take a look at Social Security. It's a mess. Income tax, a mess. Why do we need another large federal program getting in our faces and establishing rules and imposing taxes? It doesn't make any sense. We do have a problem. You're right, we do have a problem. We need to address it. I want to talk with Dr. Briggs about this and other legislators, but I have a plan that I'm not ready to unveil right here, but a plan to make health care a little more competitive here in Tennessee, and we'll be talking about that a lot in the next few months. But I oppose Insure Tennessee, and I think it's a bad idea.
Not a single Republican voted for Obamacare in Washington. Now, we have some pretty liberal, sorry Republicans in Washington. Even the sorriest of the Republicans in Washington voted against Obamacare. And then the governor wants us to expand something that even the worthless Republicans in Washington voted. I mean, sometimes I wonder, why would he ask us to do something like this? Then on the other hand, if you're a state employee or a retired legislator, you can keep your insurance. You may have to pay the lion's share. You might pay 80% of it when you leave, but you can take it with you. The governor came up with a bill last year, and it passed. I railed against it, but it passed anyway. Say you work for the state till you're 55, and you retire after 30 years. In the future hires and future legislators will not be able to take their insurance with them. And I think that's terrible. I had an amendment that said if a state employee or a legislator retires or quits or gets beat, whatever, if he's willing to pay 100% of his insurance plus 2% administrative costs to pay for the state to handle the paper, then they should be able to take their insurance with them, called portability. I mean, we're all talking about portability, let your insurance go with you. But the governor and his system just fought it and killed it. So right now, a future legislator gets elected this next time, spends 10 years in the legislature, when he leaves, will not be able to take his insurance with him, even if he pays 100% plus 2% administrative costs.
How about them Vols? I'd like to talk about something else, but I am going to talk about Insure Tennessee, and if any of you don't know, I was one of the Republicans that supported it. And I think sometimes if you look at all the details on things, is there anybody here on Medicare? Anybody over 65? There's a few people here. So is it really that bad of a program? I mean, do you have to get government approval for it? Is it like your private insurance? I guess maybe I'm a medical doctor for any of you that don't know. And I know dealing with insurance companies both, I'm not on Medicare, and I know when I have to get something approved for myself personally, it's really difficult, and it's really difficult for our patients. I don't get paid as much when I treat Medicare patients, but basically I decide what's wrong with them, I put them in the hospital, and they get taken care of, and they're not hassled. So I don't think all government programs are bad, and we get paid within a couple of weeks. The details that a lot of people don't understand about Insure Tennessee is how it's paid for. There was just slightly under $500 million, a little bit under $500 million a year that's taken out of Medicare to pay for Insure Tennessee. I mean, you know, the program that Insure Tennessee draws their money on. What that means is that the hospitals, what the federal government said is that we're going to pay the hospitals and the doctors 10 or 15% less than we've paid them in the past, because we paid them more than we wanted to pay them to make up for the people with no insurance. And it didn't matter if they took ObamaCare or Insure Tennessee or what the other Republican states have taken, that money's coming out, and our doctors and our hospitals are getting paid less than what they got paid in the past to make up for that. Now, the deal was then is that the government would give that money back to them. They said, well, everyone's going to be insured because everyone will have, and so the hospitals will get their money back and they'll be able to stay in business. And some of us don't realize that, but that's what Insure Tennessee does. It lets us get back that money that's been taken from us already. And it does not cost, everybody says it's going to cost us millions. It doesn't cost us millions. It doesn't cost the Tennessee taxpayer or the state of Tennessee anything. We started several years ago where we put an assessment of 4.5% on the hospitals. It was a tax the hospitals put on themselves for revenue. We increased it this year to 6%. The money that comes out of that is going to be about $150 million. That allows us to receive the match that the federal government would give. It doesn't cost, the hospital, the Tennessee Hospital Association pays all of that. It doesn't cost the Tennessee taxpayer nothing. Anyone that read the 21-page waiver that was submitted to, they call it the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services. Article 19, paragraph 2 says that if the federal government doesn't live up to their obligation, or if the Tennessee Hospital Association, through the assessment, does not live up to their obligation, the program is terminated. And people said, well, we've never terminated a government program before. We have. We just enrolled around 180,000 people in 2006 from TennCare. Was it painful? Yeah. Did people like to do it? Yeah. But you know, that's the real world. If you can't afford it, you can't have it. We did welfare reform in 1996. Where we basically did away with the welfare program for men who don't want to work. So we've had large government programs, and this is part of it. If it ever costs the Tennessee taxpayer any money, it ends. There is no, and people don't understand that. We've already paid for it. If you look, there were 22, the biggest chunk comes from the money, the almost $500 million a year that's taken out of Medicare. If you look at that plus a lot of other fees, most of those don't affect us directly. There was a tax on medical devices. There's a total of 22. Between 2015 and 2022, there's $900 billion of monies that come from those. This is money coming from Tennesseans. I mean, this is money we're paying. This is money that we're not getting, and it goes back. There's a reason, if you're in private business, somebody has to pay for these things. And people say, why are you for it? I disagree with a lot of my friends out here who says, let them come to the emergency room. We'll treat them for free. Let's give it free. Let's give it free. Under Insure Tennessee, they have to pay premiums every month. If they miss their premiums for 2 months, the Briggs Amendment on the Insure Tennessee says they're kicked out of the program. They don't get it anymore. They have a $75 copay they have to pay if they come in the hospital. They have an $8 copay if they go to the emergency room. They go to pick up a prescription, depends if it's generic or a brand name. They have to pay $1.50 or $3 for it. I think people should pay. I don't believe in giving it to them free. I disagree with my friends out here who say just give it to them free. I think there's a problem in Knox County where Baptist Hospital had to close because of uncompensated care. I think there's a problem that St. Mary's is closing because of uncompensated care. I think there's a problem that the Scott County Hospital closed because of uncompensated care. We have to pay for all that. Some people think that, well, you know, if we don't pay for it, it's free. It's not free. Someone has to pay. And I know the devil's in the details, and I could go on, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
When we were in the special session, my first week there, I did a lot of listening. And when you go back and look, they said 200,000 people, $1.4 billion. By the time we got to the special session, it was between 280 and 307,000 people at $1.4 billion. Now, how do the numbers increase by almost 107,000 people and the dollar amount doesn't change? That did not make sense to me. So I just started thinking, is there a different way we can look at this? So I started looking at the TennCare numbers. TennCare cost the state $10.3 billion to cover about 1.4 million people. Insure Tennessee, let's just say 280,000 people at $1.4 billion. So I just did the math. If I wanted to get Insure Tennessee to 1.4 million people, what would the cost be? $6.6 billion. So that's almost $4 billion less than what we're paying for TennCare now. So conservatively speaking, let's say it's 8.3 for what we have now. If we applied Insure Tennessee to TennCare, then that would leave us about $2 billion. We could cover the additional people at $1.4 billion and be able to write a $600 million check back to the federal government. So how do we do that? The best way to do it is if we can be the innovators in this state by receiving a block grant for Medicaid funding. Let us control it in this state. Remove the mountain of regulation from us. Let us affect the change here and not be told what to do. We know best in our communities and in our state how to help our people. Remove the regulations telling us what to do and let us do it.
This question